Picture an ordinary Tuesday. You wake up, skip breakfast because you're not hungry, sit through 8 hours of meetings, and by evening you're starving. You order in, eat past the point of fullness while watching television, and fall asleep with the TV still glowing at midnight. Nothing about this day feels reckless. No single decision seems large enough to matter. And that is exactly the point, because the body does not respond to dramatic mistakes. It responds to patterns repeated quietly, day after day, until the pattern becomes physiology. What most people do not realize is that the sequence in that ordinary day activates a set of biological systems that were never designed for it. Skipping meals and then eating a large amount late at night does not simply balance out in terms of calories. It disrupts a signaling network involving insulin, cortisol, and the hormones that regulate hunger and fullness, called ghrelin and leptin. Each of these systems operates on its own rhythm, tuned by evolution to expect regularity, daylight-based activity, and recovery through sleep. When that rhythm is scrambled often enough, the systems begin adapting to dysfunction. Here is the underlying mechanism. Insulin's primary job is to move glucose from the bloodstream into cells for use or storage. When meals are irregular and heavy, especially late in the day, insulin is released in larger surges and stays elevated longer. Persistently elevated insulin promotes fat storage and can gradually reduce the sensitivity of cells to insulin's signal, a state researchers call insulin resistance. At the same time, poor or insufficient sleep raises cortisol and blunts leptin, the hormone that tells the brain, you have enough energy stored, you can stop eating. Lower leptin signaling combined with higher ghrelin, the hormone that stimulates appetite, creates a biological environment where overeating feels less like a choice and more like a default state. The research on this is not fringe. Sleep scientists have repeatedly observed that even short-term sleep restriction, in the range of 4 to 5 hours a night, measurably increases ghrelin and decreases leptin within days, and separately increases next-day caloric intake in controlled studies. Chronobiology research also shows that eating late relative to one's natural circadian rhythm is associated with poorer glucose regulation, even when total daily calories are held constant. These are established replicated findings, not isolated claims. What remains an active area of research is exactly how much each factor, meal timing, sleep quality, and stress, contributes relative to the others. And that nuance matters, because it means no single fix explains everything. The real-world consequence of this pattern is not usually a dramatic weight gain that anyone notices right away. It's a slow drift. A few hundred extra calories most evenings, a slightly elevated fasting glucose reading at a checkup, clothes fitting a little tighter each year. Because the change is gradual, the brain adapts its sense of normal right alongside the body, so the person rarely feels like anything has gone wrong until the cumulative effect becomes visible on a scale or in a lab result. This is where the mental model needs to shift. Obesity is often framed as a failure of willpower during the moment of eating, but the biology suggests the more accurate framing is that willpower is being asked to override a hormonal environment that was shaped hours or even days earlier by how much sleep was had, how erratic the meal timing was, and how much background stress was present. In other words, the battle is frequently lost or won long before the fork ever reaches the plate. The practical takeaway is not a strict diet or a rigid rulebook. It's awareness of the upstream levers. Consistent sleep duration, meals that are not skipped and then overcompensated for, and eating patterns that lean earlier in the day rather than late at night all work by keeping insulin, cortisol, ghrelin, and leptin operating closer to their intended rhythm. None of this guarantees a particular outcome for any individual, since genetics, medical history, and life circumstances all play a role too. But understanding the mechanism gives a person something more useful than guilt. It gives them a reason for what they're experiencing, and a specific, changeable input rather than a vague, moral failing to feel bad about. So the next time an ordinary day unfolds exactly like the one at the start, skipped breakfast, late heavy dinner, a screen glowing past midnight, it's worth remembering that the body is not being lazy or weak. It is responding precisely and predictably to the instructions it has been given. The quiet patterns are the ones that write the outcome, long before anyone notices the story being told.